So today I'm delighted to be talking to Edy Liongosari, who is the Chief Research Scientist and Managing Director at Accenture. Edy, I've been working with you for over a year now, I think it is, and it's been a delight. And one of the things that I'm so fascinated about is what exactly do you do? Because you wear so many different hats. I see you in so many different meetings within Accenture. What is it exactly that you're doing?
Yes, actually, as a chief research scientist in the lab, my responsibility is about looking at the R&D agenda of the lab, make sure it is relevant, it's impactful for our clients and Accenture. So as part of that process, I'm actually involved with a lot of conversations within our leadership to make sure that the firm is actually heading the right direction. Talk to a lot of different clients to make sure that they are engaged, because a large part of the work that we do is not just an Accenture or the labs, but getting a whole lot of organizations coming together to make something that is big, and no one organization can do that themselves. That's like one key part of it. And then another hat that I wear is actually looking ahead, far ahead on the signals and identify what areas that few people cover today. Areas like biocomputing, area like material science, and specifically smart materials that very few people are touching. What
Yes.
we want to do is to understand the dynamic, how the industry change, how the technology change before it's actually come to us, right? So looking way far ahead, 5, 10 years in the future to understand the implications of that.
So in our first meeting together, you showed me this two videos that you were part of creating 20 years ago. And I remember thinking, gosh, people who didn't understand technology at the time must have thought, this is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
But tell me the difference between creating that vision and what you're doing today with the Future Labs.
It is actually quite different in terms of the actual process. One of the things that we do 20 years ago is to do that step by step, looking all the pieces that we have, a lot of R&D projects coming together, different perspective. And then after we actually have the R&D projects, we actually come back and step back, look at the sort of broader picture, what actually being transformed. So for example, we're talking about how actually a car, the vehicles in the future look like, how at that time 20 years ago, GPS and mobile phones actually are transforming people in transportation and so forth, right? And after that, we actually shoot the video out of that. That requires 2 to 3 years at a minimum to understand sort of all the implications so we can actually create the right materials for the video. What actually we're doing right now is actually the reverse, because technology is changing so fast that we're not able to do the R&D projects first and understand the implication. It's like what we're trying to do is actually look at what actually it could be, envision what all the potential, and then actually create the R&D project to flesh out all the details. And what we hopeful is actually also become an inspiration piece for the R&D projects to create and figure out what's there, and actually get also our ecosystem partners to actually come together and build it with us. So it is actually what we call the co-research, getting clients in and so forth. It's not just our R&D groups. So we are no longer about driving just a pure innovation and sort of unique place. What I actually wanted to do this time around is how to accelerate, how we're going to be able to shape the future together. You don't want to be disrupted. You want to be the disruptor. For you to be the disruptor, you have to actually get ahead. You have to be able to envision. You have to be able to shape, get the people, the organization coming together and shape that together.
Are you finding your partners and your ecosystem partners, are they feeling the same way about collaborative nature?
Yes, a lot of our clients are looking for research partners working together. They know that given how technology changed so quickly, they're not able to bring their technology skills themselves so quickly. They need to be able to partner. Things are changing so fast. So all the place where they'll be able to find help, they should actually be able to bring them together and actually create a cohesive picture together and shape it. There is no right or wrong answer, but there's a lot of influence across organization how to shape the better future.
With your research that you're doing today, data obviously is playing a key role in how you can rapidly start to think. Surely that must be a lot more helpful than it was 20 years ago.
Absolutely. I mean, that is actually really the vein that can sort of tie a lot of pieces together. How you're going to share information across organization, how you shape it to better serve your customer. Again, it's not one organization can actually fulfill all the needs for a customer, how they're going to be able to share, but sharing is actually in a thoughtful fashion, right? There's actually a lot of aspect about security and privacy and ethics and how you're going to be able to put together is very critical. So a lot of thoughts need to be placed in terms of how this data is actually being shared. But for the, if you actually do that right, it becomes very, very powerful tool to actually allow people to drive the future business.
And it's an interesting time because you've got whether we call it real news, fake news, it doesn't really matter. The little bits of news in the world around AI and the rapid technology side, you've got people who have a lot of fear, right? Mm-hmm. And then you've got people who know a little bit more and they might be a little less fearful or more fearful. Mm-hmm. And I think part of what you're doing here too is how are you informing those people, right? So that, as Paul Downtree would say, you're enhancing the workforce and upskilling the workforce about what this actually is versus replacing them.
Right.
Are you finding that as well with even your own hiring of people?
Yes, of course. I mean, let's sort of step back a little bit. I think that is, we are living in a very exciting time in human history. Mm-hmm. The things that we eat, the things that, how we dress, how we work, to how actually we treat diseases, significantly transformed through technology today. And this will just continue to accelerate. So exciting in one fashion, but then when you look at the people, they're also very concerned to a degree, especially those are afraid of being, left behind. What actually their role is, what actually we're going to do. So as an organization, it actually has to be very mindful in terms of what it means when we accelerate the process through automation, through AI, how we're going to be able to train the people. And also, it is not a one shot in terms of driving activities and actually automate and replace the people, but as you said, you augment the people, you make them much more productive, bring them along with you in terms of this digital transformation, and so that they can actually be part of your workforce to actually drive the change. When you actually just leave them behind, isolate them, that actually causes the issue. But based on our experience, it is based on how you're going to be able to use technology to retrain them, for example, make them much more skillful, or be able to augment the skill set that they do not have at the moment. The whole transition takes time. People do actually, if they are willing to, like you said, to learn, they will actually move up the complexity. So I do not see actually human being replaced anytime soon, so long that they are willing to join the journey of change.
Do you see, when you hear news and see headlines of various companies outside of America, and probably in America too, but when you see the headlines, the CEO aims to replace their workers, 60% of them in the next 5 years. How can we, first of all, that's alarming because what it does again is instill fear. So part of these interviews is really for us to show the other side of it so that we can bridge the gap between fear base, right, and reality. And what advice do you give to people? What advice are you giving to people to seek out this information and for learning today?
What actually the highlight that you see in newspaper and so forth is, you lose actually sort of people being laid off for this type of certain type of job, mostly because the job is actually well known. Transportation sector sort of being one, I think that's really the headline of many news there. Just because the bus driver and so forth is a well-known position to begin with. the new job that's actually coming up is not that known because it is new, right? Like for example, people say, oh, there's data science, data analyst, data ethics, and so forth. They are all new positions actually being rolled out, but very few people know about it or even qualified to do that. They actually require some level of retraining, but the new jobs are rolling out. This is not as well known as the old position. So that is actually sort of critical to actually understand what is actually coming versus actually what we lose. Yes, there will be a transformation about the job, but actually, as long as you understand how, what are some of the new jobs, how you're going to be able to gain that new job, is that that's actually part of the whole journey. So my daughter is actually 23 years old. She's actually going to find a job soon, and that's exactly the same job that the same advice that I gave her, which is you have to know roughly where the trajectory is, what type of future jobs will be, and how I got to be able to transition and make sure that it's relevant.
So with Accenture Labs and the various teams that you have, you've got different pockets. You've got the research, you've got experience, you've got actual innovation. How are you making sure that all of you are connecting to discuss this as well internally with everything else that's going on in your world?
Oh, it's fairly complex.
Yes.
It's actually one of my job is actually as the glue, if you will, of organization to make sure that people actually be able to speak the same language, the same process. Because as you mentioned, we have a lot of pieces from generating thought leadership, like technology vision, all the way to actual deployment of our R&D, how to actually engage with our clients and so forth. So a lot of pieces actually has to come together. A really key piece of that is actually to understand there is like a certain process that we have to follow. There are pieces that actually we need actually to be able to get together, but also to actually have a common principles, the core values of what actually do. Why actually the labs actually exist to begin with, right? We are actually in the middle of a 400,000 organization. So a lot of capacity, a lot of people actually can actually do. So why the lab? What is like a unique proposition of the lab? And that's actually sort of the really critical part of it for us to understand so that we know actually what actually the areas they want to do, right? The key aspect of what we do is not one issues that is specific to one particular client, but a broader issue in industry level that we can actually say rethink the whole space. As a lab, we have the luxury to step back and rethink, what is like a transportation industry look like in 20 to 30 years, right? How will that sort of impact what retail looks like, right? And then that is like the vision that is like driving a lot of work that we're doing. That articulation of and changes and getting to the workshop that we have with our clients to actually shape that idea. And that is actually a key aspect of shaping the future program as well, which is actually to make it articulate that vision. We can shape it, we can actually change it, but that's actually sort of part of the whole aspect of what actually we do, is actually to have that common vision, say, that is actually where we actually should go. Get the whole troops actually running around it actually to make that reality happen.
Well, you talk about today, and the times, the interesting times we're in, and I also think it's such an honor of the times we're in too, to be at this table, to be able to have these discussions and learn from history, and that's what we're really loving about working with you. I think it's not only exciting, it's impactful and it's important, and I'm very proud to be working with you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much, Edy.